adult Sunday school classes as part of the Earth Day celebration on Wednesday. You guys already probably know it's a beautiful day outside today, and looks like the weather's going to be pretty nice this week. So get outside and enjoy it. So yeah, we are really lucky to have Kelly with us today. Kelly lives in the community with her husband and family. She's an old friend of mine. We've worked together in the design and construction industry, and specifically in the sustainable design industry. Kelly's the sustainability coordinator for the city of Middleton right now. She has 20 years of experience working on sustainable projects as a landscape architect, an organic farmer, and as a certified lead AP project manager in the green building industry. Kelly holds a BA in environmental studies from the University of Chicago, an ecological horticulture certificate from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and a master's in landscape architecture from the University of Texas, Austin School of Architecture. She's worked primarily in the design field for the past decade, managing 12 LEED green building certifications in Wisconsin towns and cities. Kelly is a founding member of the Middleton Area Public Lands Endowment Board, and also serves as an advisory board member of Edgewood College's Social Innovation and Sustainability Leadership Graduation Program, where she was a fellow in 2013. Thanks so much for being with us today, Kelly. We look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, can you hear me now? Great, I'm gonna share my screen, and I have a short slide presentation to go through to talk about what we're doing in Middleton. And I do want to thank you for having me and offering this space. It's really exciting to speak to part of a congregation. It's a real interest of mine. In college, I took a lot of ethics classes in the seminary at University of Chicago, always exploring the intersection of faith and sustainability, and through the 90s. And really, I think that exploration has really guided me a lot in my career in general, really. And I'm not going to really speak to that today, but maybe in the question and answer, I'd be really interested hearing from all of you too, what your church is doing and some of the sustainability efforts on your end. Let me share my screen and hope that it works. Do people see the slideshow now? Okay,
yes, we
great.
do.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So this picture on the cover is our beloved Pheasant Branch. I don't know how many of you have been to Middleton and walked through Pheasant Branch, but it's really the reason that a lot of people, I think, move here if they're not from here. And it's one of the reasons that we bought the house where we did. And during this quarantine with this virus crisis, this has been such an asset for our community to go on long walks, to still be able to be out in nature and see the beauty, and to be reminded of some normal things during this very strange time. In Middleton, we have so much going on sustainability-wise right now, and it's been really hard making the adjustment working to home, because I was thinking to myself, this was the busiest time so far in my job. I'm about 9 months into my job with the city of Middleton. And I thought, if I can just make it through the spring and the summer, then things will start calming down. So now I'm juggling and trying to really distill down what's essential for the work that we're doing right now to try to get some stuff done from home. But it's been pretty challenging, and I never know if I'm making the right decisions on what is essential. I feel like that's become the defining question I have right now, is what is essential for everyone in our community. Our sustainability work really kicked off in around 2010. We established a sustainability committee, which quickly gained quite a bit of power in the city, and was a really active committee with dedicated members. And very quickly after the committee was established, they got busy writing a sustainable city plan. So back in about 2009 or 2010, the sustainable, my son's knocking on the door. The sustainable city plan was written with the help of the sustainability team. So it benchmarks sustainability efforts. It addresses 7 sustainability topics, a lot of the usuals: trash recycling, energy, water, public outreach, transportation and land use, and the economy. And the thing that I thought was pretty forward thinking about this plan back in 2009 or 2010 was that it took a systems approach, meaning that the plan really tried to address the idea that all of these sustainability efforts are interrelated, and when one of them changes, if we conserve more water, that will affect our energy as well. So there's a lot of overlap between the chapters and a lot of attention to the metrics that we should be collecting for this plan. And right now it's being updated, or it would have been being updated at this time. So hopefully we can get back to that in the summer, and I'm trying to work a bit on it right now. One exciting thing we're doing in Middleton is we're also updating our comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan is the overarching city plan. It's kind of the visions and values of our city, and it's a planning document, so it includes housing, affordability, land use, history, character, but there's a large segment of it that is called the Green City section. So I'm trying to align the Green City section with our sustainability plan right now, and trying to coordinate a lot of different efforts all at the same time. So there's a lot of balls in the air. One thing that really has helped us in Middleton is in 2016, we took a climate referendum to the voters, and Middleton was the first city in the nation that held an advisory referendum asking residents if they support a carbon fee and dividend proposal. And amazingly, 72% of the voters responded yes. And there was a second question on the referendum asking if voters would support climate change policies in the city, and 81% voted to support city policies. So although those questions were a little bit loose, I feel like it's really given us a ton of political capital, and the voters have spoken. We can go back and use that and say, look, the city really supports climate change efforts overwhelmingly. So we've used that a lot to push things through council and also to interact with the public. In 2018, the Sustainability Committee got together and went through about a 6-month process with the Sierra Club and worked on writing our 100% renewable resolution. And it's a really long document, and what I like about it is that it doesn't just say that by 2040 we hope to meet 80% of our community-wide energy needs with renewable energy. It has a ton of benchmarks along the way. So we have goals that we meet from between now and 2040 and 2050. It's not just, it makes it more real. So it's not just far out in the future, there's this massive goal and we don't know how to get there. There's really smaller steps listed in the resolution to get us there. And it also has a lot of other things like prioritizing microgrid-based renewable energy projects and also developing a resiliency plan, which is, as we all know, something that we're dealing with in real time right now, whether we have one or not. So these are all going to be things that we use in all of our language and our communications moving forward. One big project that some of you might have heard about is we partnered with MG&E, our utility, and also the Middleton School District to work on the Middleton Airport Shared Solar Initiative. And this is going to be a 5 megawatt solar array at our local Middleton Airport. At the time that it was conceived, it was the largest solar array in the state, or was going to be, and it was quickly outpaced by a lot of others, which is great. But it's really been exciting to have MG&E do this project in our backyard. And we are partnering with MG&E and the school district. The school district will be purchasing 1 megawatt of the energy for their energy use, and we are purchasing a 0.5 megawatt for the city's use. And then the remaining 3.5 megawatts will be sold through MG&E. And if you are an MG&E utility customer, you can go online and actually, I think there's probably some left. You can maybe still buy some solar shares in this project. And we're also, speaking of solar, we're also in the process right now of putting solar on 3 of our municipal buildings, our EMS building, our Middleton Operations Center where our fleet garage is located, and also at the new Lakeview Park Shelter. Lakeview Park is an incredible park in Middleton. It's the park on Allen Boulevard that has the splash pad, and we'll be putting solar there, which I think is really exciting because even though it won't be the biggest array, it's a place that the community can see it. We'll have signage and be able to communicate about our goals and our efforts with solar in Middleton. One really exciting thing that we're wrapping up now, but really it's the beginning of, is our 7-city grant. And this was a grant that we got from the Office of Energy Innovation. That's the state energy office. And we received a grant for $200,000. Middleton is the fiscal agent on this grant. And we partnered with 6 other Dane County municipalities. A lot of us have those 100% renewable energy plan or resolutions or goals. And a lot of us were wondering, how do we get there? What are the steps to reaching those goals? And so this grant does that. It provides an energy plan specific to each community that will help us reach our energy goals. So we actually do have a roadmap now of steps we can take, priorities that we have in our community so that we can reach those 100% renewable energy goals. Slipstream was our consultant on this, and they started out by doing energy audits and walkthroughs of our buildings. And one cool thing is they're able to compare city halls across all of these communities. And granted, they don't all have the same situation. Some are very small buildings and some are bigger buildings that house other departments in the city, but it's kind of a cool comparison to see how all of our different fire stations match up with energy use, and it just has given us so much information. And we also had regular in-person meetings and collaborations with one another, and Dane County was always at the table at all of those meetings. So it was really great to be able to look at one another and just say, what are you doing in your community for this, and how did you do it? And then be able to turn to Keith Riopel in the Office of Energy and Climate Change and say, could you help us with this? Like, what kind of structure do we need from a jurisdictional level to get us to help us achieve some of these initiatives? One thing that's sort of unique to Middleton is we have a couple really successful tax increment financing districts. And I'm not going to go into explaining all about TIF right now. That could bore us, and it's really kind of confusing. But some of the takeaways from this are, we use TIF financing to incentivize sustainability in Middleton, and we've done so really successfully. Our TID 3 district is the most successful TID district in the state, and it's doing quite well. And we've been able to incentivize loads of solar, and even a purple pipe project, which involves water recycling in a new building. So we've been able to really use TIF to help developers maybe go after some more sustainable building additional projects that they wouldn't have before because they didn't know if they would have the funding or how they would do it. And I won't read all of these. I just put this slide in here, so if you share slides later, you can go back through this. But this is a list of what our TIF policy includes and what is TIF eligible. So you'll see microgrid technology, green roofs, blue roofs that capture and store stormwater, obviously all the renewable energy technologies like solar PV, geothermal, wind energy, also under parking water retention systems and stormwater management. So there's a lot of things that a lot of this really happens at the table when we're negotiating with the developer. We really push the sustainability stuff with them. So I think a lot of those initial conversations lead to them changing the way they build when they do subsequent projects in our city and other cities. They have done it once, they've talked it through, they've done a project, and then they're much more comfortable doing it in the future on their own. This just shows that we have of our commercial solar projects in Middleton, quite a few of them were incentivized using tax increment financing incentives. And I think we have right now about 1.2 megawatts of solar that was incentivized through our TIF policy. One really exciting thing I want to mention is that this is near and dear to me. We recently received the Lead for Cities and Communities grant from the United States Green Building Council, and it's funded through the U.S. Bank. And we applied to this grant jointly with Dane County, and we were hoping to use Lead for Cities and Communities to really interface with the public more and have a more public process for showing everyone how is Middleton really stacking up and doing compared to other cities in the country on transportation, water efficiency, energy and greenhouse gas emissions, materials, and our natural systems and ecology. And the thing that was most exciting to me, and a new thing for LEED, is that this rating system and this certification that we'll be getting really has us analyzing our quality of life issues in Middleton. So it drills down into, yes, you have a high graduation rate in your high school, but who's graduating and who's not, and where's the gap there? If your housing is affordable or not, and who is losing out demographically on this. So it really digs into the social justice issues in our city, which I think will be interesting to highlight and elevate more publicly, to see that yes, Middleton is a fairly wealthy community and it has great schools and it's an amazing community to live in, but is it amazing for everyone, and who's not, who isn't, you know, gaining access to the resources we have, and how can we improve that? So I'm really looking forward to going through this process. We're part of a 20 city cohort, and we're the smallest city that was selected for this project. There's the other cities that are involved are Newark and Tampa, Charlotte, Fayetteville, Louisville. So there's a lot of really major cities, and then Middleton, which is sort of cool and exciting because we say we are small but mighty. So really excited about this project. We'll get a certification from this, and really in this sort of LEED green cities certification, it's really more about, it's really the beginning. It helps you evaluate where you're at and where there might be gaps, and how you can make improvements in the future, and it'll help us prioritize where we need to work in sustainability. Another thing we're doing in the public health sphere, and one of the balls we had in the air that's been definitely postponed because of the COVID crisis, is we were planning to redevelop our downtown, our civic assets. We're planning to build perhaps a new city hall, library, and senior center, and also maybe a community center. We're not sure if these buildings will all be in one physical building or whether they'll be split apart. But as we got through, after several months going through the process, we realized we weren't really interfacing with the public enough on this, and we didn't feel comfortable moving forward without really doing a larger public engagement process with Middleton to see what things citizens really needed and wanted from these civic assets. And also, if people all throughout Middleton will be able to access these resources if they are located in our downtown. And so in order to ask some of these questions, we decided to run this project through what is called a health in all policies public engagement process. And we're working with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the Population and Global Health Department, and also COWS in the university. And they have a large grant through Legacy Alliance for Health that they are using to help communities run through a health in all policies framework process. We're hoping that we can do this on this project, and then also work on this in all of our city projects in the future, so that we see public health as an integral part of analyzing our city projects. So resiliency is sort of the other side of the coin to our climate change mitigation work. And, you know, resiliency is about adapting to climate change or any kind of challenge, even as we work on trying to mitigate the challenge itself. And I have to admit that a few weeks ago, as I was writing the resiliency section for our comprehensive plan, I wrote this definition down pretty flippantly. You know, a measure of a community's overall capacity to provide services, maintain infrastructure, and sustain its economy in the face of a hazardous event or trend. I wrote that, you know, fairly quickly, yeah. But now, just a few short weeks after I wrote that, or copied that down, I realized we are in the middle of this, and actually you can write these things down in a plan, but when you actually think, how will we sustain our economy in the face of this event, it gets really real very fast. And so the resiliency section, especially in our comprehensive plan and our sustainability plan, has really given me pause to think we need to step back and think about what resiliency means, how we can define it better, and how we're going to work on it in the future. I really like this definition of resiliency a bit better. Krista Tippett wrote this, and I'm just going to quickly read it. To nurture a resilient human being or a resilient city is to build in an expectation of adversity, a capacity for inevitable vulnerability. As a word and a strategy, resilience honors the unromantic reality of who we are and how we are, and so becomes a refreshingly practical compass for the systems and societies we can craft. I think this really hits it more on the head with what resiliency really means. I think we need to really recognize our vulnerabilities and really honor those in our communities. And just that slight flip of the lens of seeing what resiliency is about, I think will help us move forward in a way that is more equitable and takes into, you know, sort of also honors the reality of what our community is. There's one more definition that I really liked. I heard Dr. Bernice King speak at the Greenbuild conference this last year in November, and she talked about resiliency from the perspective she really resonated with. And she says, we collectively build just ecosystems where every individual in a community has equitable access to resources to be sustainable and resilient. It's a green economy where progress isn't gained at the expense of others. And I know we've all read things like this if we're involved in the sustainability movement, but I really liked her words. And I think that this moment especially really brings us to the fore. And I think it's right in front of us right now. As we rebuild our economy, who might be left out and who will gain. So I don't have any answers right now. I think I'm still formulating the questions. So it's a really interesting time, and I'm trying to be a little bit more still and just try to think about things. I recently sent sort of an emotional email one night to all the other sustainability coordinators in the area, like Fitchburg and Madison and Sun Prairie and Monona. I've gotten to know them pretty well, largely because of all the collaboration that Dane County has been pushing through the development of their Dane County Climate Action Plan, and also because of the grant that I showed you earlier that we're working on our energy plans. I've gotten to know the sustainability coordinators pretty well, and I was asking them, you know, how are you communicating about climate change right now? Because it seems like slightly tone deaf to really be pushing climate change, even though it's just as much of a crisis as it has ever been, and it relates and it's integrated into the crisis we're dealing with now. But there's so many people who are really suffering economically, with uncertainty, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, you know, how are you going to frame this conversation as Earth Day is approaching and in our work this spring and summer? I feel like it's really caused us all to back up and really think about how we're going to communicate climate change and also all the sustainability initiatives we're working on. And Fitchburg's Phil Gruppe replied and said that he's also been really thinking about that, and that the three pillars of sustainability movement, the triple bottom line, now is really the time that we can focus on the economic and the social side of sustainability, where I think we've largely been focused a lot on the environmental and climate side of it. So we're kicking those ideas around, and we're all emailing back and forth, talking quite a bit about it, and I can't wait to see them in person and discuss this more. I'm just going to very quickly talk about our Pheasant Branch flood and the resiliency efforts there for the next 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can open it up to questions or have a discussion. As you know, in 2018, we had these dreadful floods, and in Middleton, it was really severe. We got sort of the western end of that storm. We got 11 to 13 inches in Middleton in a few hours. And it just tore through our Pheasant Branch Creek corridor, which is really the jewel of our community. And going down there the morning after it happened, it was horrible. It was really emotional. But right now we're working on resiliency efforts to rebuild this. And I think it really provides an amazing lesson for what resiliency means and sort of the more theoretical, esoteric aspects of resiliency too. We've created a Pheasant Branch corridor plan with our consultants, Cardno. And what I really liked about this corridor plan was that it uses a lot of local resources that are already present in the creek corridor, like the root wads that were unearthed during the flood. We can use them to stabilize the banks again. And the other things like the oxbow wetland, the cross veins, and stream energy dissipation structures, those are all ways that you slow the water down and just take some of the energy out of water in a flood so that it's not quite as destructive. And I really, I think it could be metaphorical for a lot of resiliency efforts. You know, understanding the energy and where you can dissipate the energy and where you can slow things down and use local resources, replant native plants in the area. Some of the areas that weathered the flood the best were actually areas that had been restored with more diversity of plants, and had also used things like natural root wads and stream stabilization techniques that would be found in a more natural setting anyway. So it was interesting to see which parts of the corridor survived and which were really destroyed. As far as the crisis at hand, one thing I'll just say about it is that it's been really interesting seeing who steps up and how quickly the community organizes. I think as a local person, you can sometimes think, oh, well, it's going to come from the government, and it's going to be the community leaders who really help people. But actually, it's oftentimes neighborhoods and 2 or 3 individuals who organize incredible responses almost overnight. And our school district has been really incredible, I think, through this. We have a lot of food insecure families in our districts. And so almost overnight, the school district established 9 different food pickup places for the families. And they also just recently raised about $15,000 to also provide families with personal hygiene products, because social workers were saying that was a real need in our community. So I feel like people have really come together, as they have all over the country and in Dane County. It's not unique to Middleton, but it's something that I'm really taking a moment to just watch and see how things get organized by people and who organizes it, because I think we're going to learn so much in the future from this crisis. Right now, we're having spirit weeks in Middleton. Each week, we do something different in the community that can be physically distanced. Chalking the sidewalks was one week, painting rocks was another week, putting hearts in windows. And then I think the last week, which is next week, is turning on your Christmas lights again. So these are just ways people can do some things which feel to make them feel part of a group. There's also a local group that was started by a citizen called the Good Neighbor Hub, and we have weekly updates, weekly Zoom meetings where anyone in the community can join and get an update from Dane County Health and our police and EMS and city, and hear about resources and help. So it's been interesting watching how people organize. So that's all I'm going to say. It's kind of strange talking to a computer without seeing anyone's faces really. So I would welcome any questions, and just thank you for the opportunity to let me tell you a bit about Middleton.
Kelly, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for that presentation. Jeff, will you kind of take the lead on where we are with time and facilitating questions from folks?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do 10 minutes of questions, and we are in gallery view now, so that's wonderful. So I'm wondering, is there anybody who has anything they'd like to ask?
So
Yeah, Steve.
how are we doing on time, Jeff?
About 10 minutes.
I know we want to give folks, if they do need to leave.
Yeah, if you need to go, you can bow out gracefully, and no one will judge you, I promise. So are there any questions?
Is everybody hearing Jeff?
Oh, yep, Eric.
I'm not getting you. I got bits and pieces of that, Jeff. I heard 10 minutes.
Yeah, Eric, you're ready to go.
What's the time frame for the reconstruction of the Pheasant Branch corridor?
Well, I'm not sure what will change because of the recent crisis. I know that I think it was they're hoping to start construction next year. I think the plan just went through city council and they had a public presentation about it. So I'm not exactly sure in the city process where all of that is. They haven't put things out to bid yet.
It looks to me like there's been some rehabilitation done already.
Yes, there has been. One thing is to note is that FEMA does provide funding for some of the destroyed areas, but they only provided funding for areas that had been engineered prior. So that's really hard to sort of prove and show them in the creek corridor because it's all been sort of engineered and built, but they only, accept certain types of engineering projects. So we have a lot that was destroyed that was not covered by FEMA, and some of the projects we have received funding from FEMA. So some of the projects have, some of the reconstruction, especially that big slope that crashed into the creek, that you've seen that has been reconstructed now.
Any other questions? Yeah, Nancy.
Yes, my question is related also to the flood. It wasn't only Pheasant Branch that really sustained a lot of damage. Some of the neighborhoods, I live in the town of Middleton, but some of the business areas right nearby here were really affected. And I'm wondering what's changed for them? What kind of flood mitigation efforts have been undertaken there, if that's your area?
Yeah, it's unfortunately not really my area, even though I have some training in that, but I haven't really been in on a lot of the conversations. The public lands manager, along with the water resources committee, would be the people who could give you the latest on the details of the engineering that's being done there. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, oh no, thank you. I just thought I would ask. And thank you so much. Just a comment, this has been so helpful to know what's happening in the city of Middleton, and I'm really excited to hear all this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kelly, I wanted to just ask, so there seems to be a really well-balanced, holistic approach to sustainability in Middleton. So a lot of times, you know, the focus is all on the environmental or the financial, how you make it work money-wise. But as we know, sustainability is a three-legged stool, where it's people, planet, and prosperity. So I heard you talk a lot about, you know, sustainability for all and accessibility for all. Has that been a hard fight in Middleton? Has that come from a lot of the leaders or the people, or where?
I don't think it's been such a hard fight. One reason I wanted to do the Lead for Cities certification is that I think it'll bring out a lot of factors about equity in our community that aren't talked about so much. It'll sort of bring them to light. And I think it might be, I think it'll be great. I think it might be hard for some people to see some of it, and I expect there'll be some pushback, but there'll also be a lot of wonderful things we can celebrate too. So it's not, I'm not saying that our certification is going to be a, oh, look what's wrong. I think it'll be a little bit of both and really help us to see where we can actually take action. Because I think every community, every organization right now talks about equity, and everyone wants to work on equity, but how do you actually work on it? And so I think there's a lot of data now out there. So we have the data, but still, then what do you do with the data? And even when you know the problem, what do you do? So the LEAD is sort of one vehicle with the added bonus of technical support and ongoing support from USGBC to help us. So once we have the data, once we see where our gaps are, they will help us, along with the cohort of the 19 other cities, actually implement initiatives, be able to prioritize actions that are working other places, and really help us with the public engagement section so we can co-create it, our future. So I want it to get away from just being two people in the city coming up with an idea and it gets voted on. I want it to be something where we all know where we stand, and then we work with community groups on actions that have already worked other places and are vetted. So we'll see. I think for me, I'm still learning. I'm saying yes to everything, and I need to stop doing that. I insert myself into every conversation in the city, and there's just one of me, and quite frankly, like, you know, I don't want to have some kind of like complex where I feel like I have the answers. So it's just about trying to embed sustainability in all the departments and then let them take the lead on a lot of the work. But I feel like there were a lot of things I was trying to get started when this COVID happened. So we have a lot of balls in the air now. And I'm trying to think which are the essential things.
What was that program called again with USGBC?
It's a new certification called Lead for Cities and Communities. It's similar to their green building certification, but they've expanded beyond buildings to the entire city. Gotcha.
And is there any of those 19 cities and villages, any others in the upper Midwest that you know of?
Let's see. There's been some in the past. I think Cleveland was in the past last year. We are the first city in Wisconsin to certify. And we're also working really closely with Dane County. Dane County applied jointly with us, and they graciously allowed Middleton to receive the funding and the certification. And they hope to also certify as a county and then help other cities in Dane County go through this process. So we're the guinea pigs.
Nice.
And they're hoping to learn from us.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have time for one more question if there's anybody else who has something.
This is Barb Eikenberry. How has your turnout been for any public meetings on this, or response rate back from the public? Are they engaged? Are they kind of backing away during this COVID time?
Well, we haven't had any public meetings with our sustainability committee since March 16th. The city administrator has shut down all non-essential committee meetings, so it's just plan, commission, and council meeting right now. So really our main priority right now during this COVID crisis is to get our comprehensive plan draft done And I want to keep the sustainability plan moving. So a lot of the public engagement stuff is on hold. And that is one of the challenges, and the thing eating away in the back of my head is how to engage the public right now. And I'm kind of still at a loss for that, as well as the other sustainability coordinators, wondering like how do I insert myself and what's really important, and also sort of just my own personal feelings of not wanting to be out there very much right now. I have compromised asthmatic kids and a mom with COPD, so I don't feel comfortable really even going to a small gathering at this point. So
yeah,
lots of Zoom meetings and not so many sustainability meetings right now.
understood. Thank you very much for your talk.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So thank you very much. And as we are wrapping up, I just wanted to say one more time, thank you, Kelly, for joining us today, for letting us know about all these wonderful things. Round of applause as everybody's muted. Just, there we go. Charlie's giving a thumbs up. Really wonderful. And I want to go on record as we are recording this that the Mustard Museum is one of my favorite places in the entire world. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, Middleton and the Dijon especially is really close to my heart there. I'm wondering if anybody would like to close us in prayer before we end our meeting.
I can close in prayer,
Thank
if you don't mind. Dear Lord, thank you for the time together to talk about the things that are so important to us. Thank you for the technology you have to be together, even when we can't physically be together. Help us to make good choices individually, as a group, and as a community, to be good stewards of your world. Help us to celebrate the beautiful things that exist in your world, and help us to do better, to preserve, protect, and enjoy the natural things that we have available to us in this world. Through Christ we pray. Let all God's children say, Amen.
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 Thanks again, everybody. This is wonderful. Next week, Carrie Sanders will be presenting. And so I look forward to seeing you all then. So join us same time, same place, new link. All right. Thanks, everybody.